we get so fixated at work on where we're getting to next that there are times when I think we actually lose touch with why we began the whole journey in the first place. And what was that journey supposed to be about for us? And so soul retrieval with my clients is really about kind of hitting that pause, hitting that sacred pause, hitting that reset to say, okay, it doesn't mean necessarily that they're going to end up taking a different job or doing something wildly differently. But what it does mean is that they're rewiring a connection into the soul part of themselves.
Hey everyone, it's Amy Lynn Durham, and you're listening to Create Magic at Work. Create Magic at Work is on a mission to equip senior leaders with tools they need to be a true quantum leader and actually understand what that means. Improve employee engagement, retain top talent, and transform your workplace culture to have less drama and stress. So let's start making magic. Hey everyone, welcome to Create Magic at Work. Today, I have Cari Jacobs-Crovetto as a guest for you. She's an executive coach and advisor specializing in leadership development. And the reason why I wanted to have Cari on the show was I'm just going to say this, she didn't seem like every other executive coach. And I don't feel like I'm every other executive coach. We all kind of have our own flavor. But Cari definitely has a little more of the Create Magic at Work flavor that I like when I started learning a little bit about her. So she built a career at ad agencies in the 90s, working with prominent brands like Levi's, P&G, and Lexus. She then moved into the entertainment industry with NBC and CBS and contributed to Bay Area startups, including Sunrun and ModCloth. Cari's personal achievements are equally impressive. She spent 3 months in silence in the Himalayas and accumulated over 5,000 hours in silent meditation. She was part of the founding teams of 2 solar startups and played a role in launching a new category of co-investing. Cari has attended Burning Man 17 times and was actively involved in organizing the LA Burning Man community in her 30s. She's also a published poet, which hopefully, I don't know if everybody knows this, in all of the Create Magic at Work community, but oh my gosh, I love poetry. I included it in the fall edition of Create Magic at Work, the magazine, and I will continue to put inspiring poetry. I would love to hear some of your poems, actually, Cari. Let me finish this though. And she's lived in diverse global locations like New York City, London, and India. And we know this is a global community here at Create Magic at Work. Cari, welcome to the show.
Amy, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to talk with you in particular today. I feel like you're a kind of a sister friend from the get-go.
Yeah, even as I'm reading your bio again, I'm like, okay, this is obvious why she's here to share her wisdom with the Create Magic at Work listeners and with me. Would you want to add anything else to what I shared with everyone? Your background?
It's always so interesting to hear other people kind of interpret or read your background, right? Because it's sort of this moment where I step out of my body and I kind of experience like, who was this woman? Who was this woman who lived this life? And I would say you did a great job of what's important to me, I think, if I were to write my own sort of, ending story, it would be that I spent equal parts in the corporate world as I did really diving very deeply in the self-awareness and transformational worlds. My medium mostly was, through meditation and sitting in quiet contemplation. But there were lots of ways that I was building bridges from the corporate world into what does it mean to truly be a soul, of being on the planet doing this thing we call work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So tell me what sparked that desire to have that silent retreat for that long and participate in that.
Yeah. So the truth is that the first silent retreat that I sat was in 1999 was my first silent retreat. And what sparked that was really two things. Number one, I was not a great leader. I don't think I had been, certainly in the 90s in ad agencies, there was not this plethora of leadership training. It was sort of like throw her in and see if it works. And if, people where it didn't work, you were just bounced right out. And so
Isn't
it
that
was
the
kind of a
training
sink or
program?
swim. That is the training program.
Yeah.
I hope it's changed a little bit today, though. I don't have 100% confidence that the ad agency world has evolved. This is a call, evolve. But so I wasn't a great leader, number one, and as a result, I suffered a lot. I suffered under bad leaders. I suffered with trying to organize and get teams to do things that felt right to me, but I wasn't able to necessarily inspire them to do. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was I sort of, I just recently am finishing editing a book. And one of the things I talk about in the early part of the book is that I found myself straddling these questions of being sort of somewhat happy in life and that I could go out and do things socially or, go to work and get up and go to the gym and do all the things. But when I went into quiet places and asked myself, like, what am I doing? Why am I here? I couldn't really say that I was fully happy. I didn't understand what we were doing in this whole work thing. And so that was really the reason that I began to sit. And I sat my first 5-day retreat when I was 30 years old at that point in my life.
Mm-hmm. You talk about helping others in the workplace having this soul retrieval moment. And I want to get into that. Before I do, I want to comment on something that you said. I think that some of us, hopefully most of us, experience this moment in our lives where we take a moment to reflect on if we are truly doing work for the greater good or in alignment with what we feel our life purpose is. And I love your story. I love everybody's story because it always gets us to that moment, right? I love your story of I sat with myself without any noise and I really tapped into what that meant for me. That's incredible. So now that you help others in the workplace with this soul retrieval work, what does that mean? What does that work entail?
Well, I can already tell how observant you are and in noticing that because that piece is so important. And I'm with you. You know, I'm lucky. I'm half Middle Eastern, half white. I'm white passing. I have the privilege of being able to sort of quote unquote sit in contemplation about my job. Not everyone in the world has those big moments where they can say, like, is my work mission based or is my work making me happy? But I do believe that we all have those moments. I call them, sort of just human sacred moments, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
there's a sudden moment, a pause, a silence, and even if it's momentary, where we ask ourselves or we have this question
Mm-hmm.
of, is what we're doing in our life, is this all there is? Is this really what happiness is? Is this what joy is? Is this what this means? And some of us ask this question vis-a-vis work, other people ask it vis-a-vis family, but there is this moment. And
Mm-hmm.
what soul retrieval really means is it is those times when we really lose our way and we just start climbing, right? It's so easy to walk into any organization and you're put in at whatever level you're put at, whether it's senior or mid-level or junior or C-suite even. And it's all about how am I going to hit the next mark and the next mark, whatever that is for you, whether that's a promotion, whether that's a raise, whether that's having more people to manage. And we get so fixated at work on where we're getting to next that there are times when I think we actually lose touch with why we began the whole journey in the first place. And what was that journey supposed to be about for us? And
Mm-hmm.
so soul retrieval with my clients is really about kind of hitting that pause, hitting that sacred pause, hitting that reset to say, okay, it doesn't mean necessarily that they're going to end up taking a different job or doing something wildly differently. But what it does mean is that they're rewiring a connection into the soul part of themselves. And they're building that connection for the long term so that they can always be finding moments, whether it's throughout the day, hopefully it's within the hour that they're
Mhm.
saying, how am I doing now? How am I doing now?
Yeah. Spiritual intelligence is one of the main frameworks and philosophies and tools with Create Magic at Work that I use. And you're reminding me of skill 8, which is what is your breadth, BREADTH, of time perception. And one of the questions on the assessment that clients answer and rank themselves on is, have I had a moment in my life where I've had an experience of popping outside of time? And I feel like the way that you're discussing this soul retrieval or sharing about it is, if someone maybe hasn't had that moment of popping outside of time in regards to their journey at work, you kind of help facilitate, kind of be the guide or the Yoda for that, like I do in the SQ world, right? In the spiritual intelligence world. So I just wanted to share that because that's very interesting, because we do get caught up in what's next. And we never, especially in the corporate space, especially in the hyperachieving space, we've both been there. And wow, what a gift to help people pause and pop outside of time and take a moment to enjoy the space that you're at in the journey. That
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is, yeah. Go ahead if you want to elaborate on that. Yeah.
Well, you're just reminding me. This morning, I spoke with a longtime client of mine. He's been my client for about 3 years, a young CEO. And, in 3 years, you can only imagine we've covered all kinds of topics, right? From difficult conversations and conflict to feedback. As a CMO, I've helped him figure out what his go to market strategy is. And so we've covered a lot of ground. And today he said to me, you know what the greatest thing is he said, I've learned a lot from you. Thank God he said that, or I would maybe be thinking I only taught him one thing. But he said, you know
Mhm.
what the one greatest thing is that you taught me? And he said, you taught me to slow down and feel my experience. And it's so simple to say those words. And it's even simple for us to grok it with the mind. But when we're going through our day, to make a choice not to pick up the phone, to make a choice not to do that next check on the to-do list, and to just check in with ourselves, that's a big feat. It's life-changing.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like those small, tiny moments that actually are the big ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
mentioned feedback when you were talking about this particular client that you were referencing. You mentioned feedback and you mentioned handling difficult conversations. I would love to talk about that a little bit. A lot of clients, people in the workspace, myself included at times, sometimes we have a difficult time navigating difficult conversations.
Mhm.
And one thing that I would like to explore, if you're open to it, is I've noticed that there's a fine line between being assertive and being aggressive, or even passive aggressive. What would you tell someone listening that's maybe struggling with something they need, a conversation they need to have with someone, and they're practicing assertiveness and they've maybe got it wrong in the past a couple of times and crossed that line into aggression?
It's such a great question. I believe that the key to that is spending time really getting close to our intention. And what I mean by that is I'll actually tell it in a story. As coaches and healers and spiritual teachers, we're not perfect, and certainly every day I'm struggle with my own ways of showing up. And I'm not a shrinking flower woman. I've never been a shrinking flower woman. I'm a passionate Lebanese woman. And so everything comes out with some dramatics. I was an actress in high school, and so part of my I guess my edge work has been, how do I still maintain that passion, still maintain showing up with a certain level of inspiration, especially as a CMO? How do I do that as a woman in a mostly male world, which is what I was in, without coming off And I'm just going to substitute aggressive for without disconnecting people from me. Right? Because what
Love
happens when people, when people
that.
experience aggression, what they're really saying is, I can't stay connected with you because I'm feeling separated. I'm feeling either fearful, or I'm feeling you're making me angry or frustrated, whatever it is, it is an emotion that disconnects me from the other person. So if the intention in going into any conversation is, I want to stay connected, then that forces the mirror back on us to say, is there anything in here that's feeling slightly better than, condescending, persecutor energy? Is there anything in here? Even if all of my words are right, even if my tone is perfect, can I get super honest with myself to say, is there any piece of me that might be having just a smidge of anger, irritation, condescension, persecutor energy in me? And just to work with that. And, there's not much to even do other than recognize it and sit with what does that feel like in the body when that comes up for me. That alone, I think so many times, Amy, we work on the script, right? And the script is important, right? Like, what are we going to say? How are we going to say it? We work on the tone, especially as women. It's exhausting for us sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Can we do it in a way that doesn't put people on their heels? But as somebody who often does come off in a way that can be a little spicy or rub people in a certain way, I have to always pay attention to those little teeny micro meta moments inside me where I may be having a little bit of rub myself. And can I just sit with that?
Yeah. And then what do we do if we feel like we got it wrong, even after all of that?
Even after all that, self-compassion, number one, we don't always get it right. Use it as the work, use it as the practice. I recently had a situation where I got it wrong, and I'm consulting, and the particular client that I'm working with said, that just felt a little aggressive. And I hung up the phone and I thought, it certainly was not my intention. My intention honestly was to really protect him from something. But I could tell that after he said it and I got off the phone and I sat with myself, I said, well, yes, it was to protect him, but there was a tiny bit of me that had this, like, why doesn't he know this? Why doesn't he already know this? And when I got close to that, right, then I could have self-compassion. Like, that's okay. Like, A, he didn't know it. And B, that's why you're here. And it's okay. It's okay that your frustration came in a little bit with this. How can you do better the next time?
So self-compassion when feelings like frustration come up, sitting with it, acknowledging it, and then perhaps even releasing it might be helpful also, like a clearing, I'm thinking, right?
Love it.
It's interesting you say frustration because I feel like right now in the consciousness of, at least in my sphere of people I'm interacting with, I don't know about anyone listening or else, I'm feeling a heightened sense of frustration from others for whatever reason. It just seems like that is coming up a little bit. And I was even with a client earlier today, and we read a prayer, an affirmation at the end of session, and I just had them exhale out the frustration. And I felt the chills from it in just doing that. So I can imagine the leaders that you work with are C-suite leaders. And I can imagine that at times they experience quite a bit of frustration. What is one tip that you would give to anyone listening that's experiencing these frustrating feelings right now, instead of fulfillment, that can help them shift a little bit?
I love this question. It's so layered. There's so much polarity happening in our world, so much pressure happening in our world right now. And, fortunately or unfortunately, it's not always happening. It's happening globally on this global scale. And some of us are really close in, if you're in the Ukraine or if you're in Israel, or if you're in right? Palestine or Gaza. You're experiencing war. You're experiencing things in the US around our political climate. There's so much energy. There's things happening in Africa, right? All over where there's just this quickening of, even if we don't label it as positive or negative, even if we just label it as a quickening of like intense energy happening.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we like get up and go to our jobs, and we go to our yoga classes, and we watch football, and we, right? Like we're holding this incredible space for the planet, no matter who you are, and yet trying to continue to live our lives. And that in and of itself can cause the nervous system to contain a heightened level of energy inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I often will do with my clients is, number one, slow down. It is so hard to do when we've got so much to do and when we're holding such a burden. But the number one, and just the training to help them slow down. That's number one. Number two is be with what's present in that slowing down moment. Right? So what's really happening? What's underneath the frustration? What's the wish under the frustration? If the frustration could talk, what would its wish be? Right? And then
Mm-hmm.
getting to, usually, I happen to coach a lot of male CEOs, right? And so oftentimes the wish is like accountability, or that people will move faster, or productivity, right? I need to hit my numbers, or I'm not hitting my numbers, right? Which is what we're
Yeah.
hearing right now. And so a piece of that is, okay, let's talk about what happens if you don't miss your numbers. And we follow that thread. Oh, well, the investors are going to be pissed, right? We may not get funding. Okay, let's take that all the way through. Let's just take the sting out of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Can you be with that all the way? Can you follow that thread of frustration all the way through? And usually it ends up to land somewhere around fear and sadness, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm fearing something. I'm sad to lose something. And can we just be with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that practice of doing it in a coaching session, over time, it starts to happen in the room, right? A sense of frustration. They may not follow the thread in the moment, right? Because there's a lot happening, but just noticing the sensation of frustration in the body, making a different choice of how you're with it, and not becoming it, but being with it.
That's so powerful. And I was going to say I would imagine, but I know this would translate into who we are at home, right? Who do we show up? How do we show up in our personal relationships? There's a lot of frustration I think that's playing out in our home, in our family relationships as well. Maybe some are experiencing a heightened sense of frustration in that way because there's no outlet for it, or there's no way to, like you said, pause and recognize it. And what am I going to do with this? I don't want to become this. Like, who do I really want to be in this moment? And I think it's really a call for all of us to pause and follow your tip to help shift when we're in that space, for sure. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's a good one. Following that thread all the way through, even in your work or your personal life.
And slowing down to be able to even feel that meta moment. I teach a course at Stanford in the MBA program called Interpersonal Dynamics, or touchy-feely. The students call it the touchy-feely course. And, these are hyperachievers at Stanford, right? They're already, they're already getting their MBAs. Some of them have worked and had immense careers before they've even, come to Stanford. And so to ask them to slow down when we're so used to achieve, check the boxes, do not pause, keep going, look at phone, right? That act is a radical act.
Even if it's 30 seconds, we'll just put a micro step out there for today for everyone.
Yeah, totally. Good enough, right?
Yeah. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. Please share with the listeners what your definition of a quantum leader is.
I loved this question. So, of course, when I listened to many of your episodes, And I knew this was coming. And it's funny because, you know, as somebody who had this corporate life, but was also sort of always interested in growing self awareness and how I showed up in the world, the first thing that came to my head when I heard quantum was sort of this quantum light, right? Or physics. And I thought, well, I'm going to actually go look up the definition of what quantum means. And it had a bunch of, there were a bunch of different little definitions that showed up on Google, but the one that captured me was the one that was around phenomena, that there's a phenomena inside of quantum. And I believe that even in what we just talked about, right? The phenomena of the human experience while we're doing all this stuff, right? It's like we're doing all this stuff all the time. And yet there's this I get chills as I express it to you, this phenomena of humanity that is happening, this interchange that's happening with not only with humans, but with everything on the planet all the time. And how do I lasso both and? How do I be in the world of doing, but be continuously kind of throwing, the guide rope back into the world of phenomena so that I have a richer experience? That's what it means to me.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Really cool way to express that. Okay, it is time to pull a card for you from the Create Magic at Work Journal Prompt Card deck, which is a deck of 33 cards. It's going to have an affirmation and a question for you that's surrounding your career or work. And you can buy a deck at createmagicatwork.net in the shop. So I'm going to pull a card for you, Cari. And the listeners and everyone, see what we get. Okay. Maybe this is going to work out some of the frustration. We got body movement.
Ooh.
So the affirmation is, when I move my body, I feel more vitality in my life. I love that. And I think we both know that moving our body is one way to shift energy, especially energy that is of the type of frustration or anger, different things like that, to help kind of shake that off. So, Cari, share with everyone, what's one thing we can all do this week, this month, whenever we're listening, to move our body?
Okay, so my favorite thing is also, I'm really into simple practices because if I tell some of my clients like they have to journal or go to a yoga class, I get a little bit of an eye roll. So
Yeah.
the thing that I love that is so simple is it is starting from the shoulder. I do these sort of backward shoulder rolls.
Love it.
And
I'm doing it.
forward shoulder roll. Ah, it feels so good, right? Forward
Yeah.
shoulder rolls. And then what I do is I start to shake one side, but not from the hand, which is where we want to shake from, but to actually shake from the shoulder. So you start the shake by moving the shoulder blade up and down. You feel the entire shoulder blade on your back. You feel just starting with just like you choose a side and maybe do that side for like 30 seconds. And then you bring the shake down. So you start shaking the bicep and then the elbow and then the forearm. And then you can sort of tip over to whichever side you're shaking and then just shake it out. Shake, shake, shake. And shake it kind of hard. You want to actually like feel as if your arm's going to sort of fly out of the socket onto the ground. Right. And if you just pause and just close your eyes and just feel that one arm.
Big difference. Yeah.
Big difference. And then, now you have the almost like
do the other side.
You cannot do this without doing the other side, right? So starting again, rolling just from the shoulder. So the rest of your arm is really kind of just asleep and lazy and hanging, feeling the whole shoulder blade and then shaking from the bicep, the elbow, the forearm, the hand, and just tipping over. The tipping over like a tea kettle is really important because you're just draining that energy out of the arm and shaking it really hard and then coming back. Whole new person.
I love that. Yeah. Love it. This was so meant for you to get that card because you gave us something easy to do in the moment that we don't have to get up and like run around the block or anything. So thank you for sharing that with everyone.
Not one more checklist, right? One more thing to do. We don't need that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. Cari, if people want to connect with you and learn more about your work, have a discussion with you, how can they reach out to you?
Sure. So I have a website, carijacobs.com. You can look over more about what I do and how I do it, and all of my contact information is there.
Amazing. And we will drop all of that in the show notes. Really, truly, thank you for all of the magic that you sent to everyone today. We really got some live action and some great tips and modalities. So I really appreciate the generosity and sharing your insights with everyone today.
Oh, thank you, Amy. Thank you for having me. It was great to make this connection.
Yeah, thank you. Hey everyone, Amy here. I am so excited to share this news with you. If you've been a longtime listener of the podcast, or even if you're new, you probably know that I weave spiritual intelligence through all of the episodes of Create Magic at Work. And we often talk about where you are at with making wise and compassionate decisions, what it looks like to be a wise and effective change agent. How do I put my ego aside and operate from my higher self? And if you've ever been curious as to what level you're sitting at in your life in those skills, I have some great news for you. I have loaded the SQ21 assessment on the Create Magic at Work website. This is something that only my private clients have access to in a coaching partnership with me. However, I have decided to give everyone access to the SQ21 assessment at a generous price, a small fee. You can take the assessment at createmagicatwork.net/shop, and you will get a printout that you can take with you the rest of your life as to where you're sitting, what level you're sitting at in the 21 skills of spiritual intelligence. This is an amazing opportunity. I encourage you to take advantage of it. Again, if you've ever been listening to all of the past episodes like, I wonder where I sit at making wise and compassionate decisions, or I wonder where I sit at being able to access my higher self, explore that curiosity and go to the website and take the assessment. I will also have that link dropped in the show notes so it's easily accessible to you here after the episode. And again, if you have any questions or if you just want to have a chat with me, I'm always available for a complimentary 30-minute coffee chat, so you can explore that as well. But get over to the website, take that assessment, and give yourself the gift of something that you can take with you for the rest of your life. Sending magic to you. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming back every week to listen to a new episode of Create Magic at Work and really helping to support and advocate for healthy leaders, workplaces, and lives for all of us. If you want any information on how to connect with me, click on the link in the show notes. You'll get access to all of the social media links for Create Magic at Work. Stay following along for more amazing episodes where we help you improve productivity and profitability in the workplace and decrease stress. Sending magic to everyone, and see you next time.